Now, ahead of Cyclone Alfred's impact, let's take a look at the preparations that are being made for those living with a disability. River Knight is a disability sector advocate and the co-founder of Developing Australian Communities. And he joins us now from Ipswich. Firstly, River, can you tell us about your own thoughts and preparations for Cyclone Alfred?
Absolutely. So I'm about to go off and do another run for sandbags. Here in the disability sector, of course, Developing Australian Communities represents the biggest disability community in Australia, and we're all getting together to make sure that service providers are aware. And of course, all those small service providers, there's thousands that popped up with NDIS. Some of them are very new to the sector, and we're just making sure everyone has done everything they can to protect Australia's most vulnerable.
And have you got experience with events like this? Have you seen anything like this before?
Well, I do remember working down on the Gold Coast. I got stuck at a house working with 4 young men with cerebral palsy and large wheelchairs for about 4 days when we had the huge, big rains down there on the coast probably a decade ago now. We had to put our feet up and just simply stay put and hope that a power didn't go out, which certainly affects people with disability. We don't realise when you're on a ventilator or you need suctioning machines, when the power goes out for 24 hours and your batteries only last 8, things get very tricky very fast.
Yeah, tell us more about that, because we know people live with a range of disabilities, and it might seem obvious to us, the challenges for someone in a wheelchair, for example, maybe not though. Tell us about these challenges that are faced that really do come into focus as well when there is an extreme weather event.
Absolutely. So just consider if you've got a situation where someone needs one-to-one support or 2 staff sharing supports in a house in the community. It only takes a small number of people to have to go to emergency departments if services fail. For those emergency departments to become overwhelmed. Even 50 people, I guess, presenting at hospital that need one-on-one nursing support would overwhelm our emergency services while they're already very busy. So we want service providers to be thinking about how they have staff available and how they have people there so that we don't have that discontinuity of services in the community. We ask people to think about people with hearing impairments, emergency services staff trying to support and rescue and at times intervene and communicate with people who might not be able to understand necessarily what is being said. We need those visual aids, and of course all of these emergency updates that we're seeing here, if we can get that voice to text going so people with hearing impairments can hear or at least see what it is that's being said with these updates, is a huge part of what needs happening. And I had a little boy with autism go missing the last time we had the floods here in Queensland for 20 minutes. And I know his mum and dad were absolutely terrified for 30 minutes because he was unable to ask for help. And of course, emergency services would not be able to understand, necessarily recognise that he had those support needs.
Yeah, and as to those service providers, it's the smaller NDIS providers that you're really focusing on here. I mean, what are your concerns around that and the considerations that they're going to have to make here?
Of course, with NDIS, we've seen thousands and thousands of service providers pop up overnight. We've got mum and dad services and, of course, independent contractors with great intentions, but they do not have necessarily extensive experience with service management. So they don't always realise and they don't know what they don't know. So we're really encouraging people to start thinking about their staff resources, what they need there at the site, so that we don't need to rely on those third-party services. Because like I said, just 50 people in Brisbane needing emergency supports from ambulance or police is going to overwhelm our system. So we're really focusing on trying to educate those service providers that are smaller, that don't have the experience with managing severe weather and maybe aren't ready and prepared like some of the bigger providers that have all those resources and that infrastructure behind them.
So, River, preparations continue, but that window is closing. Now, how are they encompassing those living with a disability? Are you satisfied that there is enough support there?
Well, I think at the moment the supports and the emergency service response tends to be on the wider community because it is such a huge task for the government to really respond and support everyone in the community. Service providers really need to wear the large part of that work because it is community-based. And of course, NDIS is not a emergency responsive service. They are a slower, I guess, federal system. They're not going to be right there at the doorstep if people get in trouble. We need to have service providers, especially the mum and dad ones, ones and those smaller ones ready to go. And those using independent contractors, we say to them, get into staffing agencies, nursing agencies, make sure they're stocked up. And please, if everyone in the community can stop buying thousands of toilet rolls, it's not the zombie apocalypse. We don't need to last for months. Just make sure that all the medications are picked up, make sure that we've got food there, we've got available batteries, make sure you bring in those garden lights, all those solar powered systems that can be used when the torches run out. And we just ask, can everyone look right now where you are, and are you in flood zones? Because of course, developing Australian communities with this huge community that I work with, the biggest thing for us is if you need to get out, you need to get out early when you're working with people with disability. You may not understand what's going on. And of course, if a person has an intellectual disability, they're not going to necessarily understand the urgency. So we need to start communicating that really well, use visuals. And of course, I'd ask every member of the media, if you can use text on your screens when you're talking and providing updates. It will support people who have hearing impairments, of course, to see what's going on and realise when they need to act.
Disability sector advocate River Knight, co-founder of Developing Australian Communities. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.